you can get a host with a automated migrate thing in where they'll bulk lot your entire portfolio in one mass hit, and that's pretty impressive. And as I say, they may also have that's called well that's the difference between a migrate in and a semi-migrate. A migrate is the data is matched on the incoming thing. So when the thing is on the second host site, even though it was put in there 5 years later, it shows that OG original date, the original date of creation is matched, and so that's a migrate. Now a semi-migrate is when you have the thing at the second host site, but the date isn't matched. And so it's in the thing exists in the second host site. It's just that it shows today's date, for example, not 5 years ago. But it's still yours and it's still an ownership, you know. And so if the original one were to fall and you had it at multiple sites over a range of dates, it's like, it's most likely that it's still yours and this sort of thing. So but yeah, that's sort of the gist of it, is that there can be automated migrate things in, but it's generally arranged fairly carefully because you want to get that right, about not losing your original dates, especially if a host, wants you to go exclusive. Now, exclusive is a whole nother set of situations where a host can request you to be exclusively at their site, but it generally needs to be in the original thing. You couldn't really implement that, what would you call it, retrospectively, and bring in exclusivity on old things and expect that a owner could go exclusive. Now, one of the things with exclusive is that you can have the thing, this is starting to sound complicated, you can have the thing at a host site but not take payments. You can have a thing at a host site and take payments. You can have a thing at a host site and not be exclusive, but if you did go exclusive, which means to remove it from all other host sites and to have all your eggs in one basket, as it were, into that one host, you'd need a decent reason. And generally the reason can be if you wanted to do something like a ownership transfer, where you were actually going to change the ownership into or sell the ownership, or transfer it into a different account. I talk about transferring it into someone's account, but that really covers the idea that it possibly could have been sold. You don't. I might have given it away to someone else, and it's in their account. Now, there might have been no money involved, so that's why I call it a transfer rather than a sale, because it's about what is the license itself doing. Well, the license is transferring to a different user account, and that's why I don't sum it up by saying it's a sale. A sale could be the use of such a process, and so that's why the process was come up with, to find out a way to make, how do you make commercial gain on a thing that you're allowed to make commercial gain on. You got to be able to make a commercial gain, so there has to be some process for a commercial gain, and so this is how it's all sort of come about. So that's the gist of that. Okay, ownership transfers of 3D print licensed things. Non-commercial things are the owned things. That's what they're called, non-commercial. So I'll start off by saying, when you first invent something and you've already done all your license checks and you've proven that it's original according to the lists, and then you upload it to a host site, there's around 60 host sites, ballpark, on the internet, is if you're going to have it at multiple hosts, which can be good for security and safety, so that you can't be hacked at a single host site or have any bizarre issues with one host going on. If you stick with one host, you never know how the future's going to go. It could get bought or sold out, or anything could happen. It could get infiltrated. You just don't know. So my opinion, opinion, some kind of opinion is that if you, because you can have your thing at multiple hosts, is to upload it to multiple hosts on the first day. Then the upload date of creation matches all of them at the same point in time, which is helpful for your future. It's just as. Okay, so let's talk about transferring the ownership or changing the ownership or selling the ownership of your non-commercial licensed thing. So there's a couple of ways of dealing with that. Not all host sites have migrate a thing into their site from another host site, where they'll agree to match the upload date of the incoming thing into their site. They can agree to match the upload date because it's the same thing. It's just at a second host site. You wouldn't have needed to do that if you'd have uploaded it there on the first day. But let's say you're moving it into this second host site and you've migrated it in, you've had the date match. Let's say you're at a host site and the host site has transfer of thing, which is basically the same idea where the date gets matched. So I'll give you an example. Let's say I own a thing and another person opens an account at that same host site because they want to buy my thing, let's say, or have the thing in their ownership. And I allow them to upload my thing into their user account, and I inform the host site I'm going to do it. The second attempted owner, after they've uploaded it into their site with today's upload date of creation, which is, of course, doesn't match the original because I might have invented it, say, 5 years ago, I would request manually through an email. And the reason it's manual, the idea that was put in was because of the future Autobots were coming, which now that they are here, is that it would put a human gap in the system of the internet so that we wouldn't get Autobot flooding the hosts. That's the idea behind that. So I would contact the host site and say, we want a date match on this thing so that it can be in this second user account. And then the host is the only one allowed to access that upload date of creation and make that date match. So it's the same thing in the second account, or it's spread to that second account. Now, of course, from my point of view, if I'm selling it, if that's what the arrangement is, then it's in the second user account. It's in their name. They've got what they wanted. Let's say they've paid for it and I've got my money. I can take mine down at that point because they've got it in their name. It's their thing. They own it. Our deal ends. No further action required. The host, the only thing they had to do was be informed that the action was taking place and that they had to match that date to that genuine original. So that was the only action they had to take. So that's pretty straightforward. Now, I'm just going to make a point about that. Why didn't you just allow them to upload it today into their second user account? If someone's buying it off you, why not just let them upload it and then take mine down? Well, the problem is their upload date is today and mine is 5 years ago. And if there's any piracy between my old upload date and today's date, then really legally it falls down the list until it hits someone who has the next date in the list, and it might not be today's date that the dude just uploaded it. So therefore you've deleted your ownership. I'd have deleted my own ownership at that point, and it wouldn't be in their name. They'd have to take theirs down as well because the ownership was given up on. And so this is why that's not always the best system. Like if I were to check the lists and see that there's absolutely definitely no pirates between like my 5-year-old date and the one that the dude just put into his account now, well, then his today's date would be fine. I could just delete mine. Like, let's say I invented something like this week, sold it, checked the lists, no one's got it. Dude puts it in his name. I can delete my one, and the fact that there's a gap in the upload dates won't matter because there is no one in between. So this is what I'm getting at. The whole point of the date match can be to eliminate the idea that it falls to some other random down the list that had nothing to do with it, So that's the gist of that. It's actually quite simple, really. The basis of a commercial gain, is to make a sale. It's pretty simple stuff. So I thought I'd mention that. All right, well, take care, be careful, and yeah, all right. Well, wishing you all nice success and to be well. Thank you. Take care. The idea of manually requesting the migrate of a thing and date match, and the manually requesting the transfer date match, where the owner emails manually in a request to ask the host, please match this date for us manually. The whole reason that is manual and not an automated thing was, as I mentioned, to negate future Autobots. And now that we're in that future, that idea looks like it was a reasonable idea. And so at this point, as I said, I've vetted, over 60 hosts, and that's likely all of them. And so, as I've mentioned, I've coached sites into, getting into this whole sort of situation and sector. And as I understand it, all hosts are abiding by that original idea that I had suggested and said, let's just go that way, and that let's just all put that manual gap in. And that's why at this point, as far as I understand it, everyone at all hosts across the world is abiding by that idea. I'm not going to call it a rule because it's not like a hard and fast rule, but I believe that it's a worthy idea, and everybody at this point is adhering to it because it's how many AI Autobots are around at the moment, and so it's like I think the idea is showing its merits. So at this point, I would continue to suggest that this is the course we continue to hold for this part of history or whatever. Maybe at the future it can be looked at, again. But at this point, yeah, let's just keep going with that, and maybe in a couple of few years we'll think about how it's sort of looking. So that's why that's there. I wanted to mention that it's just part of a safety thing for the safety of the community, the safety of the hosts, safety of the markets, the manufacturing sector, all the owners, just sort of everything about it. Really, it's just a safety idea. And as I say, everybody is adhering to that model. So my opinions, and there you have it. All right, wishing you nice success and to be well. Thank you. Ownership changes or transfer of an ownership of a 3D print thing license. Generally, that's the non-commercial license. Those are the owned ones, the ones called non-commercial. The other ones are free. They don't that's not on the same ballpark. Anyway, these owned ones can be sold or traded amongst whoever, account users of host sites. There's around 60 host sites, and you can have your thing at multiple host sites. Now, the upload date of the original creation can be at one host site, and then the owner of that thing, they can upload it to a second host site, and they can either get the date matched as it arrives there. That's called the migrate in, where the second host agrees to match the date of the incoming thing to the original. That's called the migrate in. But as an owner, you don't necessarily have to have that date matched because it is still your thing, whether the date is matched or not. obviously it's better to have that date matched. One advice or opinion I give, because all these videos are my opinions, is that when you first invent your thing and you have done all your license checks to prove that it's original, as I've mentioned how, and you upload it to the first host site, is to upload it to as many host sites as you choose on the first day. And that way all the upload dates all match. And so this actually makes the future of your life much easier. Okay, ownership of a thing license, of a non-commercial thing license, because that's the terminology to describe a owned thing, you can sell it to another person. That's commercial gain. And there's several ways to achieve it. I've described a version already, which is the I talk about migrate a thing into another host site, and then they, if they agree, they'll match the upload date of creation so that the thing arrives there with the same date. Or as the owner, if I invented something 5 years ago, say, and then I want to put it into a new host site, I can put it in there with today's date, and it's still mine, and I still own it. And that second upload is still an ownership, and it represents my ownership, and it is still mine. It doesn't matter that it has this different upload date on it, because it's still mine. I still own it. I have the right to put it at as many hosts as I see fit that I can be bothered dealing with. So, and there's around 60 host sites. But you can have it, let's say I migrated into that second host site and they agree to match the upload date so that it says, the original date at the second host site. And then from there I can, if they have transfer, which is to repeat the same task. So the owners, myself and someone else, let's say someone wants to buy my thing license, and that person gets an account at a host site, and I allow them to upload my thing file into their account with all the details and everything. The only thing that won't match is the upload date of creation, because my upload date of creation, let's say, was 5 years ago, and their one is today. Now, let's say this is all happening within one host site. So they've uploaded into their name, and the date is wrong. Now, if I were to say, I've sold it to you, for $5 or whatever, or $1 million, I have two options. The first one is I delete my version and they have a version with today's date on it. Now, the risk is that there's a bunch of pirates between my date and his date. So it would fall to the next person in the date line, according to the lists. And so therefore that second account version today wouldn't count, because it's after some pirate. And so the pirate would now own it. So this is not an ideal situation. So hence the idea of the transfer. Now the transfer is, as I mentioned, the person wanting to buy my thing would upload the thing into their account with all the details, everything about it except the date. I would request to the host site that that person in that account with a copy of my thing, I'm doing a transfer, please match the upload date of creation to mine so that both of the dates match, because it's the same thing, and I'm putting it in their account, and this is done by email. And the reason is that it's done by email and not automated is that this was an old idea put in. I sort of thought about this decades and decades ago, or whenever it was, that this should be kept in email form, outside the scope of the internet, as it were, to put a human in the chain, so that it would prevent the future Autobots, which now exist. We have Autobots all over the show. And so for that reason, the idea has been adopted, as far as I understand, from all hosts, all 60 hosts. As far as I can tell, everyone is abiding by the idea. And that's the idea, is that it's arranged manually. The owners email or contact the host and ask for a date match on a transferred thing within their website, and then the host can look at that, second account and think, okay, I'm willing to match that date. They can match the date of that thing, so it's the same thing in the second account, and then it's out of then I can delete my copy if that's the arrangement with my with the second account. Most likely it's the arrangement. If it's a sold thing, I would think, no, it's theirs now, so I would delete my one. And then the thing is in their name with the correct upload date of creation, so then it's theirs, and our deal ends and no further action would be required. So that's the reasoning to have that date match done, is to eliminate the pirates between your position and the person getting the thing, today's position of that thing. Now, let's say I'd invented something 1 year ago and there were no pirates between me and whoever else because there was no other pirated versions of my thing. So then I could say to someone else who wanted, let's say someone else wanted to buy my ownership, and I could say to them and allow them and request the host, please allow this guy to upload a copy of my thing into his account, even with today's date on it. He'll just upload it. When I delete my one, he's got a copy of one. And there were no pirates between my date a year ago and his date today, because I would check that. That would be a risk that within that microsecond of, no, because you would check the date, wouldn't you? You check today's date, and as long as there was no piracy on the today's date, then I'd be able to delete mine. It would be in his account then with today's date, and there would be no gap for piracy. So this is why it's a it's fairly straightforward once you wrap your head around it. The reasoning for these things. So that's the gist of the ownership transfer of a non-commercial licensed 3D print thing. You can get it into another person's account just by allowing them to upload it into their account. They don't need to have the date match if you can ascertain that there's no piracy between when your position was created and their position now, according to the dates. Of course, if there's if you did a search and you found that there were 1 million results of, more realistic number would be, let's say there were 1,000 wrong answers between you and their position, you'd be wanting that date matched. And so that would be the service that you'd be after then at that point, is the transfer. So you'd have to be at the right host site, or you'd have to migrate your thing into the correct host site. And so you would get that thing into that second host site that has that transfer service. So you'd migrate in, you'd get your date matched on arrival, and then you'd get the other person who wants to buy your thing to get an account at that same host site. And then you could transfer that thing into their account. So the second owner would just upload it into their account. I would inform the host that we need a date match on this thing so that I can sell it to them or do whatever I'm doing, transfer it to them. And as soon as it's matched to being the same thing in the second account, then my one is obsolete, because it's like, yeah, it's sold, it's theirs, and it's done and dusted. So that's why I'm mentioning there is 2 ways to do it. You don't necessarily need the date matched if you can ascertain that there's definitely nobody sitting between your date and the date that you actually do that task. So that's why you've got to be exactly correct, knowing 100%. I hate saying 100%, but 100% that you're sure, or as sure as possible, that there's nothing sitting between the two dates. Hope that makes easy sense. So it should do. It's pretty simple. So that's the gist of ownership transfer, and it really comes down to migrating a thing into a host site and then transferring it once it's there. And it's all about just requesting to the host site, date match this thing to this original, either within the site or from an outside host coming in. And then that's the basis that you can build from an owner of the thing's point of view, the ability to sell something, because then you want to make commercial gain because it's a non-commercial thing. You want to be able to make one sale. You want to sell the actual business at the end of all of this, or sell the ownership so that someone else can do something with it, or maybe that's just what you're doing. You've created things as a service or for others who wanted something created and they don't know how to do it. There's all manner of reasons and positions about how the hows and whys. So there you go. I've made a little video about that, just so that people can get the gist of it. All right, good luck. Be careful. Take your time. And just be careful and take care. All right, wishing you nice success and to be well. Thank you.